Hi everyone, how's it going? If I was to say that this is the best shirt in the world, well, I believe that many people are gonna argue against that and say, no, that's probably not the case. Another shirt may as well be more worthy of being the best shirt in the world, somehow, the best. So if I said the exact same thing, but saying that, in my opinion, this is the best shirt in the world, basically many people are not going to argue against that because not many people are going to argue, no, you're wrong, your opinion is not that, it's something else. I believe that this is a very rare thing to say, very difficult for someone to say this and genuinely mean it. And so, why am I saying this? Because I have the impression that we, as individuals, have the impression that we can say we can get or even describe or even grasp the absolute truth we can possibly can. Now, there is some type of truth that we can possibly can get or understand, but I'm saying this more like that, of course, there's a limit to how many things a human brain or a human person can pretty much understand. There are probably more things unknown instead of the things that are unknown today. By definition, you cannot know the entire things when you know things that you don't know. Does that make sense? So, in that sense, not only that, we are much more limited in the sense of we are taking space, literally, both physically and mentally, to even try to get in the game of trying to describe what truth is. First, we must be able to grasp truth entirely, as a species, not just individually. Second, we must be able to describe it. And many people may as well have nothing to do with the truth, and then they learn the truth. And basically, almost all people must agree or understand that concept for it to be true or not. For example, science doesn't always make absolute sense to the human brain or to the human species in general, but we can basically explain most of the things that nature is essentially acting, because nature has her own basically laws, the laws of nature, and even though we can be the observers of these laws, we can also basically say that, okay, these laws exist. Why do they exist? Probably they exist for these reasons. And basically with that kind of logic, we can justify the reasons of those laws existing. And then what happens? Basically, all that description, all that phrasing of just seeing the phenomenon and then try to describe it with words, it all becomes basically subjective. Because a person who may as well know the phenomenon may as well have a certain way to describe those laws, let's say. And it's not that they're gonna see the exact same thing and they're going to find different, exactly opposite, let's say, views or points and make completely different or even opposite conclusions, let's say. But the thing is that this can also happen and make sense. We can basically see every type of phenomenon, every type of law, every kind of rule, and have certain kinds of people that are going to see the exact same phenomenon and basically draw different assumptions and conclusions. And that can basically be a same coin of two opposite sides. And the thing is that when we as humans try to make our opinions, it's not necessarily that we just choose that over the absolute truth. Is that most humans can understand the things that they can understand, and they, or we in general, we humans, don't really have any access to more truth other than what we know at that time for that to be true. For example, there can be considered to be an objective opinion, such as that most water is not so clean in the world, right? Anyone can say that I drink clean water, and being from, let's say, Western societies, and the other person, and some other person may as well say that no, most water is definitely not so clean, and live in other type of countries in a way, or even in the same countries, Western countries. And so it all basically depends on the individual and what the individual can get. But the so-called objective opinion, let's say that the objective opinion is that the water is not so dirty. So what? I mean, it matters to every person what their opinion is. I'm saying this because if there is such thing as an absolute objective opinion, which is basically the absolute best truth we can have, or the top truth, does that mean that humans are not supposed to have their own opinions? It can be, because if you know the absolute truth, if you know the objective opinion, something that is very hardly, something that is very hardly, you can doubt it very hardly. You can disprove it very hard. It's very hard to prove it wrong, in a way. If we have that type of opinion, objective view, why would anyone have their own opinions if they themselves get to know such opinion? It doesn't really make much sense, because the thing is that, in my humble opinion, there's no such thing as absolute truth, because the human species are in a way to constantly have that changed. What is top prioritized? What is popular? What is new? Basically, what's new is something that previously we did not know. And the thing is that if there is such thing as an absolute truth, that thing is also constantly changing, because we constantly either add more things that are true or disprove things that are false, or basically challenge the exact same thing, the exact same stable truth. If we constantly basically bomb it with evidence and facts and everything that we know to be true, we can basically change everything into any type of form, as long as it makes some type of sense. Basically, absolute truth, there's not going to be such thing as an absolute truth, because we also don't really, I believe, there's not going to be much space to grasp it. It's just like I said a bit earlier, that it's going to be just like a type of sun. Let's just say that this is a sun. I will try to see it with my own eyes. Probably gonna have my eyes look the other way around, or to try to touch it. Probably my hand's gonna melt. We basically cannot stand the entire truth of anything, simply because it's not convenient. Basically, if there is any type of truth, it's going to be convincing to the human species. And I think that we're using facts or truth that we know basically the other way around. I have the impression that most people using facts and truth to shut down conversations in a way. For example, you cannot disagree with me because there is truth when it comes to that. Maybe I should think of a legit example here. Well, let's just say that must try to think a little bit. Viewpoints. Well, let's just say that society had some rules for some people that made their lives easier. Let's just say that, for example. Okay? If we say that this can be considered to be absolute truth, some people are going to disagree and some people are going to agree. There's no such thing as absolute truth, because there's always going to be at least one person who is going to try their best to agree or disagree with everything they hear. And the thing is that those things constantly change. Many people can consider this idea to be absolute, but not absolute for the type of person that basically has all the benefits, let's say. It can be either a person that has some characteristics that cannot change, or that a person that has a specific, let's say, type of status, or an amount of money that says that he or she has it best. The thing is that all those things can take the viewpoint that you want. And at the same time, the only thing that we have access to as individuals is their own opinions. Because let's say that I want to make an argument about that some people that have more status, basically have it easier, alright? I'm going to present more examples of that happening because I believe that to be. And if I happen to be a person that disagree with that, I'm going to point out situations that people were, let's say, mistreated and still made it. And the thing is that both things are true so long as I can prove it, as I can present it in a way. And so the thing is that the human mind and the spirit goes always against something that thinks is against our will. And basically, most people can make an argument that can be either outstanding or horrible. And it's all basically a game of power in a way, because it depends on the person that can prove that someone can make an argument that stands. And basically, I have one argument and I can basically push that argument with many other more reasons or benefits to that in a way. And so the thing is that my opinion is not get my humble opinion and my suggestions, at least to people like me who think similarly, is to not get crazy when people are disagreeing, especially about hard issues and hard to comprehend and talked about issues. Because really, I don't think most people are lying, and I don't think that most people are coping. It's just that I don't think we can make conversations. We must learn how to talk to each other with, of course, with patience and, for the most part, respect. And this means not to get angry at all, not to raise your voice, not to be angry or violent. All those stuff are just inexcusable. And all those emotions and actions are basically strong attachments to our beliefs, which basically, if we take too seriously, they're revealing themselves. And I'm saying this because it matters more to support the argument rather than to being able to make conversations about those topics in the first place, because really we care about the ideas, and if we cannot talk, we're basically going to view each other as enemies who wish the other side did not exist, who both sides wish that the other side did not exist, basically, if that makes sense. And the thing is that let's not get crazy. At least this is what I'm gonna say. I want to talk to people and basically disagree with them for the most part, not for the sake of disagreeing, of course, but exactly because we are different people. We're basically going to view other things, and it's only a matter of time before I come to a person that, even though we can disagree for the most part, there is basically one thing that we can both disagree on. And the thing is that the concept of absolute truth is standing in the way of us basically making conversations, because especially when we do not talk, we keep everything to ourselves, and in a way that basically ignores the oppositions. We think automatically that the other people are wrong because they disagree, and we are not making the conversations in the first place. And in my opinion, this is the modern way of fighting. If you really want to prove something right or disprove something else wrong, you have to try your arguments and try to support it with evidence as much as you can. And basically, the person who does this the most is the person that can get more out of their arguments and out of their intellectual ability to think. Because that's the point. It's the thing that I believe we should do more. Try to find out the truth without basically having an absolute prototype of truth. And the more that you realize that you have to try and talk and make more questions, is that the more limited we are to this absolute idea and objective view of truth. Because really there is none. Because we are limited and we take space. We can see up in front in our eyes, but not behind our heads. And someone who's behind from our heads can see us from behind. And what I mean by this is that we can do many things and can discuss many situations and think about many concepts. But basically by being more open and try to talk with other people and be genuine about it, try your best to speak and articulate your thoughts. Basically that's the best thing we have to peace in a way. It's a way of fighting that is not actually fighting, and it's a way of just proving and convincing instead of peer pressuring or coercion, or try to make coercion against other people. Essentially pressure, just pressure other people to convince with you. Coerced, not feel coerced. And so at any time, anything we may as well know can be disproven wrong. And the thing is that, as I said earlier, something that I did not earn back then, I did not finish my point, is that if we have some kind of facts that we know are true, to the extent that they are, right? Basically, we want to say in an argument that if I have that fact or truth, basically the conversation ends because that is the truth. We know now the truth. When it is the other way around, the facts and the proof, the evidence, is to make a common ground and say that this is okay, something that we can agree that it exists. And if that does really exist, okay, what then? Because I can tell you, we basically could say that we can argue as to whether or not electricity exists, all right? And the ones who can prove that electricity exists can do it, and the other that doesn't want to prove it is going to prove the opposite of electricity existing. And the thing is that those people can argue, but the thing is that most people are able to prove their things, such as that electricity exists, and then what to do of it. Because, for example, someone just discovered electricity that we today know that it's true and it exists. Electricity exists. We can make it, we can produce it, we can use it to advantage. And the next thing you know is that we managed to have basically electric cars. I mean, it's all based on the human instinct to serve ourselves with technology and basically rule or understand the laws of nature around us, and not necessarily make sense of it, but to try to make a part of nature to make it our own, and basically try to either use it to our advantage or invent or make art or whatever. And that is basically the thing, that the absolute truth ruins conversations, ruins our ability to think, and it gives people comfort that basically this thing exists and I know that absolute truth and objectivity, in which case if I have that Everybody else is probably below me because they do not know the truth that I know, which is the absolute truth, and they are below, and they have to get to know more. When the thing is that we do that, we make conversations to get closer to the so-called truth, even though there's no such thing, and we probably not gonna get that easily if that actually exists, because we have to basically make an absolute argument, an absolute truth that this is true, and no one is able to, let's say, doubt it. And there's no such thing. The humans are rebellious in general, and basically anyone who wants to put in their mind that something that we have proven to be true is going to be proven wrong in his or her eyes, because that is how humans are. If we do not like something, we're going to bomb it with as much research and evidence to say that this is wrong, and we don't want this to be true. And this is pretty much for everything, for political opinions, for the smallest of things. And the thing is that I think it's better off to say my opinion and then say everything, for two reasons. Because first, it's your opinion, and you are allowed to say whatever you want as your own opinion. You can say that, let's say, God exists. If you just say that God exists, anyone can say, no, God does not exist, and you have no evidence for it, or something like that. But if you say, this is my opinion is that God exists, no one can tell you that this is not true. You believe that this is true. You're free to do that. You're allowed to do that. And so, if you frame things that you're allowed to say your opinions, and they are valid, and second, that basically opens discussion and makes ideas, and it's much more interesting to try and make discussions and search out how other people think, because I think we need this more than ever. We must be able to talk more, and I don't think we are making ourselves open-minded enough to be able to talk. We think we know, when basically anything can be turned around if you set the argument in the correct tone and word choice in a way that seems more powerful than your own. Then the other person is more right than you, in a way. Anyways, this is going to be today's video. I hope you like it, and I'm going to see you next time. Bye, and thank you so much for your time.